Okay, well, it's now time to take a look at what's grabbing headlines here in the French papers. With me in studio, I have Solange Moujon. Morning to you, Solange. Today, if I've glanced properly at the front pages, a lot about the week to come when it comes to the French labour unions and French labour reforms.
Indeed. Get ready for a major week, for a busy week. That's the message in the article in Le Parisien this morning. It details the schedule of the different labour unions. First, today, there are truckers going on strike, and then there'll be two protests, one on Thursday and one on Saturday. The article says that all of the pieces are falling into place for what could become a major opposition movement, even if we're not there yet. They quote the head of the CGT union saying, "Ce n'est qu'un début," or "this is just the beginning."
Oh, fun times, as we so often have in Septembers here in France. But labour unions not too happy with Emmanuel Macron's proposed labour reforms. And according to one newspaper, Libération, a lot of the French people not so happy either.
Yeah, Libération this morning chose to put an opinion poll on its cover with a big 60%. It says that 60% of French people think Macron's labour reforms will hurt workers, and that just some 30% think he's on the right track. But Libération explains on page 2 in its editorial that such dissatisfaction isn't translating for now into major protests or rallies. Libération says that's because French are, quote, fatalists, and that many people feel that les jeux sont faits, or the dice have been rolled, and that there's no going back, and the reforms are a done deal. But Libération warns that sometimes all it takes is a little wrong step or
yeah, and I think actually, while the strikes can be very disruptive and drive you a bit insane at times, it is one thing I think the French are generally quite motivated to get out onto the streets compared to other countries like my own. Moving on to happier French news, Solange. The past weekend, tens of thousands turning out to celebrate humanity.
Yeah, it's called La Fete de L'Humanité in France. It's widely known that way. And it isn't really per se a celebration about humanity. It's a gathering that was started in the 1930s by the communist newspaper L'Humanité, hence its name. Tens of thousands of people come out to watch concerts. This year there was Iggy Pop and Renaud, and they also listened to seminars in a suburb outside Paris. Now, the annual gathering was front page news, of course, on L'Humanité on its front cover, and it said "Quel peuple," or "What a people." It's sort of praising all those that came out, and they're also underlining the numbers of people that came out. They say 550,000 people were at the 3-day festival.
It's quite impressive numbers, I have to say. But L'Humanité wasn't the only paper that covered the festival. Others gave coverage to the political speeches during the weekend.
On the other end of the political spectrum, the conservative paper Le Figaro talks about the tensions between the head of the Communist Party, Pierre Laurent, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He's the head of the France Insoumise, or Unsubmissive France movement. They've been quite vocal against Macron. Anyway, so Pierre Laurent gave a scathing speech at Fete de L'Humanité, and he slammed Mélenchon for not attending. And he said the people are here, but he isn't. Pierre Laurent also said that Mélenchon can't presume that he alone holds all the truths. Now, Mélenchon responded to that speech saying that the reason the Communist Party is attacking him is because they are losing their political foothold. Now, turning now to the Figaro, they also cover an article about a bunch of thieves who basically weren't thinking about the collective good because the money is, they explained that 3 people attacked one of the event's organizers and stole 23,000 euros that had come from the ticket sales.
Oh, that's a kind of a depressing note to finish that story on, Solange. Moving on, though, to how the French papers are going to cover these upcoming elections in Germany.
Yeah,
a lot of interest.
Yeah. Let's take a look at this cartoon by Willem. It shows Emmanuel Macron in the center with a new sort of haircut that resembles Angela Merkel's. And you have the French Prime Minister saying, "Everyone dreams of the German model." Now let's look at another cartoon. This one's from L'Opinion, and it's by CAC. And you have Merkel next to a man who's in lederhosen drinking beer, which is sort of in honor of Oktoberfest, which has just begun. And you have Emmanuel Macron referring to the strong support that Merkel has had for the past 12 years with the German people. And Macron says they've been together for 12 years and they're still going strong. On the right, you have a woman dusting off Macron's portrait saying, "Don't get overexcited."
One to watch. Le Figaro's economic section, though, also talks about Germany's current economic strength, but says there could be trouble ahead.
Yeah, it's the golden age for Germany. That's an article in Le Figaro, its title, and it recaps how well Germany is doing. It gives us the numbers, and it quotes one economist saying that Germany is living its best years right now. The paper also, though, goes into Germany's weak spots, and it says that there's a growing economic divide, not between East and West, but North and South, and that the North has lost some of its economic attractiveness to southern states. Now, the paper also goes into the problem of Germany's future retirees. It says that studies show that by 2030, 1 in 5 German retirees will have to deal with poverty. And they say that that's because of the aging population, less of a workforce, and that there's an increase in the number of part-time and risky jobs.
Yeah, okay. Finally, something a little bit lighter, perhaps, an article about space and what would happen if extraterrestrials discovered us before we them.
The Nouvelle Obs asks this question in all seriousness. It goes into studies that have been conducted by researchers to find out how many planets can actually observe the Earth. And so far, they've found 68 planets can observe the Earth, but they say that no one can really tell. For now, from what we can tell, none of them are inhabitable to living beings.
For now.
Yes.
Solange Mison with the review of the French papers. Thanks indeed for that.